And thank you and welcome back to the channel here. I'd like to thank everybody who voted towards my last poll on what type of subject I'd like to do next for my next video. And today we are landing on the top 10 rarest items within my collection. Now, rarity and value usually go hand in hand, but I'm going to try to deviate a little bit. Some of the items are very pricey and expensive, but I'd really like to showcase items that I don't see in very many people's collections or games. What I would like to showcase is rare oddities that you don't see every day. The things that kind of stand out from one person's collection to another. Things that are much harder to find even today, whether they were in lower print years ago and they've been opened up and the boxes are gone or the manuals are gone. It's harder to complete this item. I don't have items that are worth thousands of dollars. I've never been on the hunt for something that's valuable. I've been on the hunt for the complete N64 collection, complete in box, which kind of dwindled down and kind of fizzled out at some point. I made it about halfway complete in box, and I was 2 games away from completing it for the cartridge only. I was missing Stunt Racer and Super Bowling. Nonetheless, there's some interesting items that come along here, and I'm not going to subject it to just one item with some of these. Some of them are more or less the rarity of the collection, where there's a variety of games that are put together that make it much more rare to have all of them than just as a standalone item. Again, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and let's get to the video.
Now we're looking for our first rare item here. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. You know.
What are you buying?
Here we go.
Here we go. The first item on the list is the Resident Evil 4 PlayStation 2 controller, the chainsaw controller. Now, this thing is a interesting piece of controller design. I've had an unboxing video that was done a while ago about how to use this thing, how to open this up, and it was brand new when I got it. But it is complete. There's the zip ties that are still attached to it, like there's little twist ties, not zip ties. This is an interesting piece because it is a very large item in the collection, but it stands out in such a big way. They made such a beautiful display case with the little velvet carpet bottom for it to rest on, a nice little stand. The biggest issue with this controller, I personally feel, is that an engineer was made to make the chainsaw controller that doesn't play video games. To play on a PlayStation 2, and especially for this game, is not even close to the most optimal way. It is a very, very cool item in the collection. It is a standalone showpiece and was announced also as a GameCube variant, but the red one here is the PlayStation 2 variant. So roughly nowadays, complete in box, this is going for, what I've seen it sell for is between $400 to $450. So you're getting a pretty chunky item and a miserable controller at best.
Another rare item. Heading over to the N64 stuff. What are we getting? What are we getting? What are we gonna grab? Aha! Perfect.
Here we go. I actually pulled 2 items off the shelf here. We got Worms Armageddon for the N64 and StarCraft 64. Now, both of these games are interesting about why they are so rare. Both of these are complete in box items, but the reason that both of these are so valuable is because they were ported onto other consoles. Consoles that were better suited for the gameplay. Worms Armageddon was released on the N64 here, but it also came out on the PlayStation 1 and also came out on PC. So playing with a mouse and keyboard on PC was very viable. And playing on the PlayStation 2 controller versus the very janky, misdesigned N64 controller led to those games selling better. Not only that, but the PlayStation and the bringing in of the CD-ROM games made the price and cost much cheaper. Getting the N64 version with a box, a printed manual, and a cartridge instead of a disc-based game made the value of this one much higher on the shelf versus the PlayStation. And knowing stuff like Worms Armageddon and StarCraft 64, they were more guided towards a adult audience anyways, not something that Nintendo was primarily going for. So now let's talk about StarCraft 64. This is one that I still can't believe today that Nintendo even convinced this company to make this for the N64, that their project was ported with the controller of the N64 in mind. If they had ever played a game on the N64 before, they probably would have shut this right down, this project right down. Even on the PlayStation 1, it didn't sell very well, let alone having it on the N64. And the release of competitive online gameplay that this game specifically brought in. The tactile gameplay. There is no chance that I could see a skilled player really beat somebody using a keyboard and mouse versus the N64 controller. Because of that, both of these games plummeted in production and sales. So trying to find either of these loose is quite expensive. And the problem is, even loose, the StarCraft 64 is very terrible to play. So you're buying a game that's mainly just for its rarity. And then the Worms Armageddon is still good to play with the controller, but it doesn't quite match the same capabilities as playing it on PC or the PlayStation. I bought the StarCraft 64 game first, and then a friend of mine was getting rid of a lot of his old gaming stuff, and the box and the manual was found deep within the archives of the box that he gave me. I was pleasantly surprised that it's not very damaged, and I was very lucky for that. And for Worms Armageddon 64 Complete, this is an interesting one as well. I bought the game, the cartridge only, from a game store that was closing down on eBay. They listed that their game store was closing down, that all their inventory was put up online, and I bought the game only for about $120. And then the box and manual I got together in another lot, and I was fairly lucky with that. I paid at a convention about $200 for a lot of boxes, and again, I was looking for the complete N64 collection for quite a while until these box prices got completely insane, and I was able to complete this one. I personally think that Worms Armageddon 64 is the rarest game for the N64. Its production rate is so low, the amount that goes up online for sale is so little all the time. You can always find a stunt racer, you can always find a Super Bowling, you can usually find a sculptor's cut if you consider that part of the collection. But Worms Armageddon 64 is one of the rarest games to get on this N64 collection. And today it's roughly going for about $1,000 complete in box. Would you look at that?
Yeah, let's stick with a couple more of these N64 things. Yeah, Conkers. Wait, wasn't he on another game? Not just Conkers Bad Fur Day. Conkers Pocket Tales?
Yes. Conkers Bad Fur Day. And the lovely time I had with this game at the age of about 11, for how much gore, blood, and swearing was and adult features were put in this game. Maybe I shouldn't have been playing it with a guidebook by my side. Obviously, Conkers Bad Fur Day became a massive success and a hit classic among many people when GoldenEye and other games came out. It was exclusive for the N64 before they made the reloaded version for the original Xbox, but this one is known to be king. This is a very rare item, but it was sold very well. Now, Conkers Pocket Tales is a different story. This is one that I had never seen publicized. Conker is a little bit more friendly in this game. He's not He's not a mischievous squirrel getting drunk and pissing on things. So the thing about Conkers Pocket Tales is this is an item I specifically do not see in very many people's collection, but I do find a lot of people going after Conkers Bad Fur Day. Recently, Conkers Bad Fur Day complete in box is roughly about $300, but Conkers Pocket Tales complete in box for the Game Boy, which is something that people don't go after too often, is looking at about $80 to $90 complete in box. I was very surprised, but nonetheless, this is a specific item I do not see in very many people's collection, let alone if they even know about it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put this guy back. Wait a second. Dragon Warriors. What about these guys?
The Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest series for the handhelds. This combination of games that is in my hand is something that every single game store that I go to wishes that they have in stock. They fly off the shelves to collectors and people love buying them. Remakes of the NES games that are beloved by many a long time ago. This is 1 through 9. 10 became a Wii exclusive game, and 11 is a Switch game. So they are technically all handhelds. Isn't that amazing? Now what makes this collection so interesting of games is that Dragon Quest was the original games to come out on the NES system, and eventually get ported over with new graphics, new extra dungeons and areas and abilities and characters to play with, only within these remasters. And these were the only ways that they got remastered until what's recently come out on the Nintendo Switch eShop. But playing them like this was the only way to get them way back when. Getting these Game Boy Color games complete in box back when I was younger, I think was a very good purchase. The only reason I did get them when I was young was because of the art logo on Dragon Warrior 3. This majestic fighter who is ready to go and slay in combat. This just screamed fantasy and brilliant RPG to me. And from that, I found out what a tough game it is for somebody who's about the age of 12 without a guidebook of any kind. And then there was the more kid-friendly looking one with Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior 1 and 2. This one on the very front of it had kids fighting monsters. This seemed more of a applicable game for somebody my age, where I could complete it and slay monsters. I was on very much of a tangent at one point, ensuring that I got all the Dragon Quest games, so if I ever wanted to go back, I could play them all. But the rarest ones out of the bunch, I'm pretty sure, is Dragon Quest V, Dragon Quest 3, and Dragon Quest 6. Most of these games come up at a whopping $100 complete in box, but some of them are going upwards between $200 to $300, whether that's 3, 4, 5, and 6. They have become much rarer as these DS games kind of fizzled out and didn't get produced quite as much as the 3DS games like number 8 and number 9 and number 7 later on. So the rarity and the history behind Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest, and the brilliant remasters that they made just for the DS's and the Game Boy Colors make them more valuable, and especially as a set.
Oh yeah, so let's put these guys back now. Wait, Pokemon? No, we couldn't have forgot about the Pokemon.
Okay, maybe this was a bad idea. Oh. So, what I hold in my hands is all of most of the complete in-box Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, Pokemon Mainline, and spin-off games. Whether it comes to the special edition release yellow Pokemon Game Boy included with the Pokemon Yellow game inside, whether the spin-off games are Pokemon Pinball and Pokemon Trading Card Game, I do realize I am missing Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. I have the loose edition of the Game Boy Advance Pokemon pinball game. Whether it comes to the complete in box first 3 mainline games, the second gen 3 games, the third gen 3 games, remaster of Fire Red and Leaf Green, big box of Soul Silver, and Heart Gold. Now, I know that this is comping out a little bit, not saying this is one rare specific item, but the lot of them together is something that really catches a lot of people's eyes. When they come in to see the collection, this is an item that specifically stands out. Back in the 90s, Pokemon was exploding everywhere, and these games were flying off the shelves. The Pokemon franchise and these boxes have become skyrocketingly high in value, where each one of these is closing in between $200 to $500 a piece. Knowing that these were printed in the multi-millions and sold all across the country in different nations, I don't think makes them quite as rare, because that there are so many that are printed. But when it comes to the special editions, like the 3rd edition for each series, whether it's Crystal, Emerald, and Yellow, those are the ones that the people want the boxes for the most. They remember them the best, and they came with the most exclusives within the game. I love this little collection. I really hope to fill in the Pokemon puzzle game for the Game Boy Color and get the box and manual one day for the Pokemon pinball game for the Game Boy Advance. Nonetheless, this is a part of the collection that has been here since day one, ever since I became a collector. Now that we're done putting back all the Pokemon stuff, I'm pretty sure I have something valuable here for PlayStation 2. Wait. Nope, these guys. That's right. It is not Silent Hill 2 or Silent Hill 1 on the PlayStation, but it is the Fatal Frame Trio. It became a survival horror classic to those who knew about it. It is still a bit of a niche game. Fatal Frame 1, 2, and 3 are iconic to me. It was back when games like The Suffering and Resident Evil 4 were very popular, and something like this kind of fell onto the backdrop. Fatal Frame 1, 2, and 3 I got all at once in one day from a Blockbuster. This was when Blockbuster was closing, and they had PlayStation 2 games that weren't selling on for roughly about $10 a piece. And knowing at the time that these seemed like interesting horror games that almost look like movies out on the very front of the cases, I was very interested in. I've always loved these horror games, whether it's an action horror or a survival horror. These were a very random purchase for me and a much more pleasant surprise. I agree that the second one is the most iconic, the best one out of the 3, where you are fighting combat with a mysterious camera that can see and combat ghosts. Each of these games today are going for about $100 each. But the impressive part about it is that I see the Silent Hill games being sold at every convention, at every game store, everywhere. People knew about Silent Hill, and people loved it. And it's being resold at every game store, everywhere that I go to, for high market values. It doesn't mean that it's specifically rare, but the Fatal Frame series is one that I do not see in very many shops, and that people now know is an iconic horror series that lots of people missed out on. This is why that I think this is a much more rarer set of games than any of the Silent Hill series. So, in my opinion, I'm very glad to have these over the Silent Hill games, because the Silent Hill ones that I have over there, I was able to pick up more recently in the past couple of years, because they were much more available at many more of my local game stores, willing to make deals, versus the Fatal Frame series, which does not come in their stores very often. Let's put these guys away. Wait, iconic Final Fantasy? Wasn't there something kind of like that?
Chrono Trigger. I think we can do better than that. Yeah, sure we can.
And now time for one of people's most iconic, classic RPG games ever made. Actually, Squaresoft's, before they changed to Square Enix, their masterpiece, Chrono Trigger. Now, I am missing one poster out of this box, and I fell in love with this game back on the DS re-release. Yes, I did not play this when it originally either came out or it had been out for a while. I thought this game was going to become unattainable for me, especially for the rising price in it that consistently kept happening once I started really checking into games that I missed out on. The DS one was the one that seemed like it was going to become the most affordable, accessible, and most playable version for somebody like me at the time. So I got it, fell in love with it, and knew that I had to get my hands on a almost complete in-box edition of Chrono Trigger. And the funny thing is I won this on an eBay auction for about $130. Yep, the box is a little beat up. It's got a couple of dents and marks in it. It's missing one of the posters, but I am more than happy with it. Recently, this game, even cartridge alone, is going between $250, and then complete in box is roughly around $700, which I think is outrageous. But the game wasn't in such high print like all the other Final Fantasy games that they were making at the time. So, with the re-release, if you are going to get yourself into Chrono Trigger, I know that the eShop for the 3DS and the Wii U is going down. Try to get your hands on the re-release version. This here, the DS re-release version. This could be possibly your best bet at getting yourself into Chrono Trigger. Get yourself a 3DS, a 3DS XL, and go on this adventure. It is a blast, always a lot of fun. There's a reason why people think this is the best RPG ever made.
Chrono Trigger. Much love. Something else beloved. It's the Legend of Zelda collection. But wait, hold on. Promotional disc collector's edition. I see tons of people with this. What's that? The Guidebook?
Yeah, here we are again with another guidebook. But this is The Legend of Zelda, the collector's edition with the Guidebook. Now, this was a promotional disc that was not for resale on the bottom of it. Vendors and stores like Toys R Us and Zellers did not sell this product at the stores. You could only get this through the Nintendo Power magazine at the time. And it wasn't very expensive, but it included the first two original Legend of Zeldas, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and the upcoming Wind Waker as a demo. Now, this game here is one of the best and most iconic ways to play those games, especially the first two. It doesn't run like the original two, where it can erase your battery or fumble around in your NES and gray screen you and stuff like that. You'll have a memory card, you'll have it saved forever on your GameCube. But what isn't so noticed around with this game, and things that I haven't seen in people's collection, is this beautiful guidebook. I got this at the same time through that Nintendo Power magazine. This has a guide for all four of those games, but it shows you editions of the maps, and this is such a strange piece to get. This is an item I rarely ever see at conventions, in people's collections, or anywhere else. That game is iconic for people to have. This guidebook is very, very rare. Where that was only sold through the promotion of Nintendo Power and people went after it, this one here was also only sold by Nintendo Power, but was probably sold at about a tenth of the rate, I'd like to say. For every 10 of those that were sold, one person probably also bought one of these guidebooks. So, for another one in the collection that's super rare here, I think it's the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition Official Guidebook.
And back you go you beloved game. And what an amazing series. Wait, didn't they make a console for it? Yes. The Zelda Wii U. Wait. Didn't they... Wasn't it made for... Here we go. Oh boy. Here we go. Probably one of the biggest items I'm going to show off is this brutally damaged Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD Collector's Edition Zelda. So we all know the horror stories of how terribly the Wii U sold. It was one of the worst selling consoles ever made by Nintendo, but it led to the predecessor that came later for the Nintendo Switch by being the handheld console that you can take anywhere and have lots of fun connecting with your friends and family online or within your close surrounding area. Now, this is one of the few special editions that they made for the Wii U. There was lots of different editions between the higher gigabyte one, the white edition, and there's plenty others. But this one here is the special Zelda edition one. And I got this from my wife back for my birthday one year, a couple years after this released. She asked me what I would like, and I had just recently come into being interested in the Wii U before Switch's release, and I found this, and I thought that this would be it's a beautiful box, number one, and knowing that it amplifies to the Zelda collection and the materials that I have already, I thought that this one would be a great addition. This was one of the only ones that could be found at the time, and it is because of its rarity. It is really not an easy item to find, especially complete in the box and with the console fully functionally working. So this again is another one of the items that went along with the collection. What a beautiful special edition collector's edition. The Nintendo 64. Didn't they make a special edition for their controllers and consoles? Sorry for the mess here. Wait. That's right. This guy. And last but not least, we're going back to the iconic 90s Pokemon. This is the special edition Japanese Pikachu N64, the blue with the light up cheeks. This was a very interesting spontaneous purchase of mine on eBay one day as I was kind of cruising around. I didn't know something like this existed. I have owned multiple N64s before in my lifetime, and a lot of the extra items that I kind of get, I usually try to sell or get rid of to add other things that I would personally enjoy into the collection. There's nothing that I keep specifically that I don't think holds interesting merit to myself. Pokemon is obviously one of those massively iconic series that everybody from the 90s and onwards just fell in love with. And even previous to the 90s, right? So this one is, I don't know if it's in low production rate. I just don't see it in a lot of people's collections, where a lot of other people get an N64, whether it's the jungle green or one of the other super fun colored ones, like the ice blue became the most iconically wanted one. I really wanted the light up cheeks Pikachu with the Pokeball N64. This one's a lot of fun. I really like playing the Pokemon games on the N64 through this, and I think it's cheeky. It's cute and it's cheeky. And I think that's going to do it for us today. That concludes 10 of the rarest items that I think I have within my collection that I don't usually see in other people's game rooms or stores of any kind. So if there was anything that you saw as we were kind of cruising through there, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the video. I do like getting feedback from all of you guys about what's up and coming, what I should do next. But nonetheless, this was a fun one to kind of take a step back and really look at what I think is definitively rare versus what's
valuable. So thanks very much if you made it all this way, and stay tuned for more.